Ready to go.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to talk today about weight cutting and my issues with weight cutting. I'm not a fan. I absolutely despise weight cutting. I think that it is really bad for the sport of arm wrestling, of combat sports, kickboxing, MMA, anything where people are deliberately dehydrating themselves before a combat event is not a good idea in my book. I really don't like it. The reason I'm talking about this is today I saw on the UFC weigh-ins, we had a lady named Julia Stoliarenko. She went to weigh in, she got on the scales and completely fainted. So dehydrated that she actually passed out on the scale, fell down on the stage, landed on the UFC banner behind her. Medical staff revived her. She tried to weigh in again and fainted again on the scale. This is a major issue that people are not willing to sort of address. When a fighter, well, let me just quickly explain with weight cutting. The idea is that somebody or a tournament or an event might have a weight class that somebody wants to enter. Let's say it's 70 kilos. So if you wanted to enter the 70 kilo class, but you actually weigh 80 kilos, what people do is leading up to the event, like a couple of days beforehand, they'll start water loading, which is putting a whole heap of water in your body. So your body gets used to flushing out a heap of water. And then the day before the fight, they'll cut off the water. They'll sit in the sauna. They'll sit in hot baths. They'll basically take all the water out of their system to bring themselves down from their natural weight, maybe sitting around 80 kilos, maybe 78, something like that. And they'll reduce themselves down to that 70 kilo mark. They'll step on the scale at the time of weigh-in at 70 kilos. And straight away afterwards, they'll start rehydrating themselves back up to about 70, 78, 80 kilos. So by the time the actual event comes in, usually weigh-ins are like 24 hours before the event, or the day before. So people are weighing in the day before, and then they're competing the next day. The thing is that they're competing at a massive amount of weight advantage over their opponent, theoretically. I mean, their opponent is most likely cutting weight as well. But if you're entering a 70 kilo class, most people are actually probably going to weigh around 80 kilos because they've done this dehydration method to be able to sort of slot themselves into that category. They really don't belong in that category. They don't weigh 70 kilos. They just weighed 70 kilos for that weigh-in moment. And literally, you can see fighters or competitors that are shuffling to the scale because they are so dehydrated. Lips are cracked. They have no energy, slurring their speech in some cases, getting on the scale and weighing in. And they've just made that weight limit. And most of the time, they're only just touching that weight. And straight away after the scale, they're putting back on their fluids and their food, and then they're jumping back up to their unnatural body weight for that actual division that they're entering. Incredibly frustrating. As a fan, I want to see the health and safety of the athletes. I mean, I want to see the best fights. If somebody has cut 10 kilos the day before and they're stepping into an octagon or onto an arm wrestling table or to a jiu-jitsu tournament or a wrestling tournament, and they're not fully rehydrated, they are putting themselves at massive risk of permanent injury and sickness. There's been so many fights that have been cancelled because people have stuffed up their weigh-in, or they haven't been able to lose weight. So they're trying to do the dehydration method. The body just shuts down, won't let them sweat anymore. They might be 4 kilos above where they're trying to get to. And the body's just like, it's not sweating. So I don't know, it just really frustrates me. You can probably hear it in my voice, but I've been a fan of combat sports and MMA and arm wrestling and everything for years, and I just keep seeing these events get stuffed up where somebody stuffs a weigh-in leading up to the event. It's almost a separate event in it. It's a separate event compared to the actual competition. Is how much is this person going to weigh? Are they going to be able to make the weight? And it should never be that conversation. It should always be, this person is a professional athlete. They should be fighting in a weight category that actually suits them, that they weigh at. Then it shouldn't be trying to manipulate their body weight 24 hours or even less than that, trying to get into a weight division that they don't naturally belong to, just so they can have a weight advantage going into the fight. Very frustrating. There's been a couple of ideas that people have come up with over the years of how to combat that. One of the things the UFC has implemented is a no IV hydration, which is basically that you would get intravenous hydration straight after your weigh-in. Helps you recover a lot faster. They've banned that. To some detriments, because some people sort of see that as, well, you're preventing people from being able to dehydrate and rehydrate themselves effectively. But you know, there is one method that people have implemented which actually works, and I would love to see put into the mainstream, and that is with One Fighting Championship, which is an Asian organization. What they implemented is a no dehydration rule. What they do is they actually test your hydration levels before you get on the scale. If you are dehydrated, you cannot weigh in. So that completely prevents people from being able to dehydrate themselves. There are other methods that you can do to reduce your weight. I mean, obviously, if you're not eating a couple of days before or something like that, but they are not at the extreme level of dehydrating yourself and reducing. One of the, I'm just getting passionate about this. I'm getting excited. The thing is, I hate it. Anyway, Robert Whittaker, UFC former middleweight champion. He was weighing in at the welterweight division, which is, so you got middleweight and then you got welterweight, which is below that. So Robert Whittaker is an Australian fighter. He was weighing in to the welterweight division, dehydrating himself. He was going reasonably well, winning one, losing one. Then he got knocked out, I think it was either 2 or 3 times in a row. And he actually made the move up in weight, went up to middleweight, and won 6, 7 fights in a row, and became world champion. He credits that move up in the fact that when he was doing his weight cutting, he was reducing the amount of fluid around his brain, because he was dehydrating so much that everything was going out of his body in order to make weight. There is fluid around your brain. That was reducing to a point where he felt it was a significant impact on his ability to take punches and kicks in fights. And you can understand the science behind it. Your brain's sitting in fluid, basically. What happens when you get knocked out or a concussion is your brain gets rattled and it smashes against the side of your skull. That fries the brain for a second and you get knocked out. You go on the floor, and then a couple of seconds later, hopefully, you'll wake back up. But if you have dehydrated yourself, you have less of that fluid, which means that you're going to get more of an impact when you're getting struck. You can sort of see that argument behind it, and my sort of point and my sort of theory behind this is that I would love to see that people. This is the thing that frustrates me is, if everyone was, let's say the middleweight division, right? Let's say middleweight division, I think it's 77 kilos, maybe 83, something like that. Whatever it is, if everyone in that division is currently cutting weight to get to that division, they're all sitting at about, let's say high 80s. If they didn't dehydrate, and it was all the same competitors, but they all just moved up in weight class, it would still be the same competitors and the same champions, but they wouldn't be fighting dehydrated. They wouldn't be fighting in a way that is putting their health and safety at risk. And that's what we want to see. We want to see the athletes compete at their best. And it just frustrates me so much to think that somebody has done all that work, put in all that dedication, sacrifice, and time to come into an event or a fight, and then the day before, they are literally dehydrating themselves to the point where it affects their performance significantly. And there's been so many examples of somebody going into a competition that has a terrible performance, and they attribute it purely to having a terrible weight cut. Nothing to do with their training camp, nothing to do with injury, just they had a bad weight cut and they could not perform on the night. It's so frustrating. This is one of the reasons when I ran we had our real cup tournament just recently. It wasn't mine personally, but it was the tournament that we had for our club, for the SA Titans club. even with arm wrestling, with wrestling, with jiu-jitsu tournaments, people are still trying to manipulate that weight cutting weigh-in schedule. So usually you'll see a 24-hour before weigh-in, or the night before the event sort of weigh-in. I didn't want that. I don't want people to dehydrate themselves into a weight class they don't belong to. So what I did is I put the weigh-ins 1 hour before the event started. That way, the amount of weight that you could put back on in 1 hour is going to be significantly reduced. And I put the lightest weight class. We had 4 weight classes. There's 75, 95, 95 kilos above, and beginner's class. So 75 kilos, obviously that's the one that people are going to be trying to get into the most, because they're trying to reduce their body weight to get under 75 kilos. Let's put that weight class first. 1 hour before weigh-in, and then we'll put 75 kilo class. So if you're weighing in, you only have 1 hour to rehydrate, put that weight back on. So even though you would still be able to put on a reasonable amount, maybe a couple of kilos, it's not going to be significant enough to have a massive advantage over your opponent going into the event. And plus, the good thing about arm wrestling is that you're not in such a combat position that if you're not getting struck to the head, you don't get kicked in the head or punched in the head. If you're competing dehydrated in arm wrestling, it might affect your performance slightly, but the real advantage in arm wrestling would be the weight factor. So if I can, as an event organizer, can reduce somebody from being able to manipulate that to an extent, I'm happy to do that. So and the advantage is that people aren't. I mean, I'm trying to get this in a way. I'm trying to get it across in a way that people can understand that it's the safety of the people that are competing that I'm concerned about. I want to see the best performances, but I want to see the people coming in without cutting this weight, feeling exhausted, putting their health and safety at risk. People have literally died doing weight cuts. If anyone who's cut weight will tell you how absolutely horrible they felt. It's being dehydrated. It is not good for you whatsoever. It is not something that we should be encouraging. In fact, we should be working on the opposite. So if we can come up with any sort of system, I love the no dehydration policy that ONE FC Championship put in. I doubt that we would get something like that in arm wrestling at this point, simply because arm wrestling is still at that underground level. Maybe one day, but it is, as I said, not a sport where you're going to be at risk of getting punched or kicked in the head. So there is that factor to consider as well. Anyway, guys, I was so frustrated seeing this weigh-in today, seeing this girl faint twice, and her fight got cancelled, by the way. So she did all that work, all that training, all that dedication, media, they've promoted the event. She was ready. She did the stare down, and then weight cut, stuffed it up. She got too dehydrated to walk onto the stage, weighing in. I'll put the footage in this as well. On the scale, literally passed out. They revived her. She passed out again. So terrible, terrible stuff. Don't want to see that in combat sport. Don't want to see that in arm wrestling. Don't want to see that in MMA and anywhere. So love to hear your thoughts. If you want to put some comments down below, I'll reply to everything that comes up. Thanks, guys. Good on you. That's a man!